Greetings and salutations. Today we will be covering D.B. Cooper. Around 4 p.m. on November 24th, 1971, a nondescript man calling himself Dan Cooper entered Portland International Airport and purchased a one-way ticket from Portland to Seattle-Tacoma Airport. Being an accentless middle-aged man in a dark suit and tie caused little attention to be paid to him. Sometime after takeoff, he handed a note to a flight attendant. Thinking the note was the man's phone number, she just slipped it into her pocket. The next time she passed by, she was asked by Cooper to come closer. Then he told her to read the note, emphasizing that he had a bomb with him, pointing towards his briefcase. Flight attendant Schaffner then went to the gallery to read the note. She would then show the other flight attendants, and together they hurried to show the pilot. After reading the note, the pilot immediately contacted air traffic control. They, in turn, contacted the Seattle Police Department, who informed the FBI. The FBI would place an urgent call to the airline's president, who said they should just comply with Cooper's demands. A Seattle police detective was sent to the Seattle First National Bank to collect a canvas bag full of $200,000 in $20 bills. And, along with that, 4 parachutes would be collected per Cooper's request. 2 military-type parachutes and 2 sport-type parachutes. At the time, it was thought that the request for 2 sets of parachutes was due to the intent to take a hostage. However, it is currently believed that he intended others to believe that, as to keep the parachutes from being tampered with. In Seattle, at 5:39 that afternoon, the jet landed and taxied to a remote portion of the airport tarmac. This portion was devoid of light and several hundred yards away from the airport terminal proper. The only persons allowed near the plane were the fuel tank operators to refuel it and the man who would deliver the cash from the Seattle First National Bank along with the parachutes. The hijacker was upset because the cash had not come in the knapsack as he had requested, but in a canvas bag from the bank. Despite his irritations, he offered the flight attendant a stack of bills, which she promptly refused, on the grounds, jokingly, that there was no tipping allowed by the airlines. Cooper allowed the 2 other stewardesses. Cooper would also allow the other 2 flight attendants to get past him and retrieve their purses. As they were passing him, he offered the same deal to them too. However, they also rebuffed his offer. And once they rebuffed his offer, they were allowed to leave. Now Cooper was alone with the final flight attendant. Cooper addressed the problem presented by the fact he had not received the backpack, as he had asked for. He would improvise by opening one of the reserve chutes and cannibalizing it. This one wasn't a dummy chute, it was an actual parachute, and he did this with a knife he had also brought along. He would use the lines from the chute he cut to secure the bag of money to his chest. About 2 hours later, the demands had been met, and the 727 had retaken the skies. Bound to Reno, less than half an hour later, he had ordered the flight attendant to the cockpit, as he locked himself in the rear compartment. Cooper also had directed the captain to depressurize the cabin. He knew that a person could breathe normally at 10,000 feet, and that if the cabin had equalized pressure inside and out, he would not be ripped out by a violent gust of wind. After all the flight details had been figured out, the plane was at the air at 7:46 p.m. At 8:24 p.m., the nose dipped, which was followed by a correcting dip in the tail end. The pilot made sure to take note of where the dip took place. This was 25 miles north of Portland, near the Lewis River. The crew had assumed the aft stairs had been lowered and that Cooper had jumped. However, they did not make this confirmation due to not wanting to disobey Cooper's orders and risk him using the bomb. At 10:15 p.m., the jet landed in Reno, Nevada. The pilot, Scott, spoke over the intercom, and after receiving no response, he opened the cockpit door, finding the cabin empty. Cooper was long gone, along with all his money and his primary belongings. Unknown to Cooper and the crew, F-106 fighter planes had been scrambled to intercept and follow. However, they were having difficulties with this due to the low speeds they were being forced to operate in. In addition, 2 F-102s were scrambled from the Idaho Air National Guard base. And an Air National Guard pilot doing a training run in a T-33 reconnaissance aircraft was also called and pressed into action. They were flying about 2 miles behind the 727. Keeping within sight, yet the pilot said that they had not seen anyone jump from the plane. The crew had continued flying, not knowing whether Cooper was on the plane or not. The pilot and crew were quite shocked during the landing. The stairs being down caused a series of sparks to emit from it, making the landing a much more traumatizing affair. The investigation found the aircraft generally empty, with the exception of the mangled parachute that had been used by Cooper to adhere the money to his chest. This, along with 8 cigarette butts, his tie, and tie pin, were all that was left by Cooper, along with 66 potential fingerprints. After landing in Reno, FBI Special Agent Harold Campbell said in Las Vegas, Nevada that 2 chutes were found on board. It was later revealed to the investigators that the delivery of this parachutes during the hijacking was a mistake. An honest one, apparently. However, this was not intentional on the part of the authorities or the parachute company. It was an honest mistake. Julius Matson, agent in charge of the Portland office, said that the search by Army Reserve helicopters and light planes would proceed south from the Amoy Bay area, noting that it wasn't a bad spot to land if you knew what you were doing. The search for Cooper started with a Lewis County Sheriff deputy patrolling a 25-mile section of Randall Trout Lake Road and expanding it to the northern section of Clark County, concentrated between the woodlands of the border between North Oregon and Southwest Washington. From there, the entirety of Southwest Washington, north of the Columbia River, was scoured by ground searchers, boat searchers, and air searchers for nearly 3 weeks. Some of the statements surrounding the search noted that he's either hung up in the branches on some tree somewhere and we won't find him until next deer season, or he's watching us on television laughing his full beard off. Others were less optimistic, stating that they were looking for either a parachute or a hole in the ground. This was said by Clark County Undersheriff Tom McDowell. Following this, there were copycat cases and individuals claiming to be D.B. Cooper. The most notable copycat attempt took place on April 7, 1972, 4 months after D.B. Cooper's hijacking, when a passenger registered as James Johnson boarded a United Airlines flight during a stopover in Denver, Colorado. The aircraft was a Boeing 727, equipped with the same type of stairs as the one Cooper had skyjacked. The differences start to appear when the quantity of money is noted. Rather than $200,000 Cooper had asked for, Johnson asked for $500,000 instead. Johnson wound up carrying a novelty grenade and an empty pistol. Unlike Cooper, he had forgotten to request a note be returned, along with leaving behind a magazine he had been flipping through. This was just enough evidence to find who he was. Johnson's real identity was 29-year-old Richard McCoy, a decorated veteran of the Vietnam War and a college student at Brigham Young University. 2 days after his skyjacking, McCoy was arrested and convicted and sentenced with a sentence of 45 years of incarceration. Funnily enough, on November 1976, federal authorities realized that no one had ever actually charged Cooper with a crime, so they quickly sought an indictment in Portland just before the statute of limitations could potentially expire. This led to a John Doe, aka D.B. Cooper, being indicted. The trail for Cooper had seemingly gone cold around February 10, 1980, until an 8-year-old Vancouver, Washington boy named Brian Ingram found a decomposing stack of $20 bills on the shore of the Columbia River, in an area named the Tenabar. FBI confirmed the serial numbers were those given to Cooper's ransom. The location where the money was found gave investigators pause. Eventually, a hydrologist would find that the money had been deposited on the river back in August 1974, 3 years after Cooper's jump, and it is speculated that it was probably carried along by the river current and deposited where it was found. Now, it must be said that D.B. Cooper had never actually referred to himself as D.B. Cooper. The name was actually a result of one of the early results in the investigation. However, it would prove to have a lasting impact. A police record from Oregon man named D.B. Cooper was quickly discovered and considered a possible suspect. However, he was quickly cleared by the police. What happened was that an eager and careless member of the press had confused the name and the name that the hijacker had given due to the similarities. This simple mistake was then repeated by multiple reporters, until the entire media had picked up on the catchy moniker, D.B. Cooper. Over the years, many individuals have claimed to be D.B. Cooper. The FBI has investigated many of them, quietly though. However, they have been unable to turn up anything useful or actionable. There have also been many cases where people have claimed that their family members, distant or otherwise, were D.B. Cooper or Dan Cooper. In August of 2011, Marla Cooper claimed that Dan Cooper was her uncle, L.D. Cooper. Marla had claimed that she had overheard a conversation saying that their money problems were solved and that they had hijacked a plane. Somewhat contradictory to this, however, she had also claimed that no money was ever recovered, claiming her uncle had lost it during the jump, even though fingerprints had been taken from every surface he could have touched, and he had even left his tie with some DNA evidence. The DNA of 3 individuals has been found on the tie, though this is likely due to mismanagement of the evidence. Days and weeks had come and gone. Massive searches had been conducted in the area where the hijacker was thought to be. This was near a small town named Ariel. However, nothing was found. Oddly enough, now the town of Ariel celebrates the event. Memorabilia, t-shirts, movies, songs have been written about D.B. Cooper, unintentionally ingraining himself as part of the American outlaw legend. In the 40 years after the hijacking, Flight Attendant Tina McClough has declined to give interviews about her experience, saying that she doesn't want to make a hero of Cooper. It is noted, however, that he was never cruel or nasty in any way, and that McClough would later become a nun. There are individuals such as Agent Ralph Himmelsbach, who in 1986 self-published a book about the case, and he points out that Dan Cooper jeopardized the lives of the passengers and crew, and he characterized Dan Cooper as a rotten, sleazy bastard. The FBI had kept the case open for more than 40 years, keeping an agent in Seattle working the case. It is believed that if the man who committed the crime had continued living, he'd be somewhere in his 80s. I would like to thank those who stayed with me until the end of the video, and I do hope that I have enticed you into coming back for more content later on.